So I've already brought all of the photos into Lightroom, and when I cull, I initially just do a very quick pass through and flag all of the images that I think are contenders. So you can see here where I've flagged several that I liked, and then I'm gonna just go ahead and filter it down so that it's only showing me the images that I have flagged. And I'll go through these in a little more detail, just zooming in, making sure that they're, um, in focus, looking at body language and what's kind of pleasing to me. And I really like this one. And so this is the one that I'm going to end up going with. So the first thing I'm going to do, and I've created a virtual copy here so I can kind of start from scratch, but I'm going to take it into the develop mode. So I'm going to press D on my keyboard. And I'm going to first go through our kind of basic edit panel. Now you can see that this image is overexposed, and I'm going to see if I can save this one. It looks like the highlights are not blown on my skin, which is the most important thing. I don't care that they're blown over here because I'm going to end up editing the curtain out. The day that I shot this is a north facing window, and it was like one of those days where the sun kept kind of just intermittently peeking in and out of the clouds. So some of the images that I shot are fine, and then there are ones like this one where the sun came through right at that moment and it was overexposed. So we're going to see what we can do with this. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my exposure down, and I'm going to bring it down to about there. And then I'm going to go down to my highlights and my shadows, and highlights I'm going to bring down even more. And I'm going to bring my shadows up. And I have these little triangles turned on up here on my histogram, which are showing me where I'm either blowing a highlight or clipping a shadow. So if I turn that off, it'll turn that blue part off. And same thing here, where if I kept my exposure up, the highlights are shown in red where they are blown. So if I turn that little triangle off and on, then it'll show me those things. Okay, and then I'm just going to give it a little bit of clarity and a little bit of vibrance. I'm going to go up to 10 on vibrance. I might pull it back just a little bit. Okay. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to use some masking tools. So I'm going to go up here to my brush or my masking, and then click brush. And I am just going to work on some of these little hot spots, I guess, on my face, as well as the shadows here. Let's work on the shadows first. And I can use my my mouse to make my brush either bigger or smaller. I can also use the bracket keys on my keyboard to make it bigger or smaller. All right, so we're gonna just bring the shadows up just a little bit and just kind of brush on here and see if I can bring any of that detail back. But it did help some to bring back some of the details in my hair, because I don't want my head to look like it's just a big black blob. So we're gonna go ahead and call that good. And then I'm gonna just do that again with the highlights and just tone this down just a little bit. Not much, just a little. Okay. I'm actually going to bring those highlights down just a little bit more. There, I like that. Okay. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll down to my sharpening and noise reduction tools. And for sharpening, I'm going to hold down the Option key on the mask. And as I slide it, you're going to see kind of the outline of my of the subject here come into shape. And I'm just going to make it so that it's about, I'm going to make sure that all of the kind of the outline is highlighted here. And this is just having it sharpen those outlines. And then I'm going to bring my noise reduction up. We're going to go to about 20 here. I think my ISO was, let's see, what was it? It was 2500. So I want to bring in some luminance for the noise reduction. And I shot it with, my aperture is 4 and my shutter speed is 1/500th of a second. Normally for just a self-portrait, my shutter speed would be a little bit lower, but I knew I was going to be moving around a lot for this, and so I wanted to make sure that I had a higher shutter speed as well as my aperture was adjusted so that if I moved a little bit from my spot that I would still be in focus. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to crop this. Like I said, we're going to get rid of the curtains and our dresser over here, but I'm going to help myself out by just cropping in a little bit. And I'm going to want to be mostly centered here. And I'm going to change this to an 8x10 crop. I'll put my eye kind of right on the center there. Okay. All right, so the next edits that we're going to make are going to be in Photoshop to finish this image. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to right click on this and I'm going to say edit in Adobe Photoshop, and it is going to pull it into Photoshop for me. Okay, so now that we're in Photoshop, I am going to create a copy of this layer. So I'm going to hit Command J. That way I always have an original saved layer all the way at the bottom here as my background. So if I want to go back, I can. So the first thing I need to do is get rid of the rest of this curtain that is still in the frame. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to select my rectangular marquee tool. And I'm just going to click and drag, make sure I get it all in here. And so it's filled in there, and I'm going to go to Edit, Content Aware Fill. And it's going to highlight this portion in green that the computer is going to kind of look at to figure out, okay, this is what I should use to fill in this area. And this is a really easy fix because it's a real solid dark background, and so it did a great job. I'm going to hit apply, and it did great. So I'm going to hit OK. And then I'm going to hit Command D to deselect that. And it looks great. I don't see that I need to make any further adjustments to that. So now that we have that all done, I need to do one more thing just to this image before we bring the overlays in, and that is to iron my shirt. So I'm going to use a technique called frequency separation. I use an action from Piximperfect. So I'm going to go to my actions and I'm going to click on the action and press play, and it's actually just going to create the layers for me. So one is kind of a high pass layer and one is a low frequency layer. And you can see that the low frequency layer applies a blur, and I usually try to keep this. What you're looking for is that it is making kind of a change to the wrinkles without, if you take it too far, then that's what you're going to get. So you want to keep the detail where you can. So I'm going to do it at about 9. Call that all right. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do, so it creates these layers. So if I turn the low frequency off, you can see what high frequency looks like, and vice versa, low frequency. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try to get rid of those wrinkles as much as I can using the low frequency layer. So I'm going to turn this high one off, and I'm going to hit Command J to create a copy. And I'm going to say low frequency mixer brush. I'm going to use a mixer brush. And we're going to, let's see, we're going to keep all those the same as where they're at. And what this does is it takes a sample. So I'm going to hold the Alt key down while I click on the image. And I've taken my sample, and then I'm going to just start painting over, and it's going to try to kind of mix the different colors together to get rid of some of those wrinkles. All right. And it's kind of tedious work, but it will make a difference. All right, let's see how that looks. We're going to turn our high frequency back on, and we're going to do before, after, and you can see that it made a difference, but we're not quite done yet. There's still some really big wrinkles that I need to fix, and the only way that we're going to be able to fix those is by working with the high frequency layer. So again, I'm going to do Command J to create another one. And for this one, we're going to use our healing tools. So I'm going to turn this off and only work with the high frequency. Actually, I'm going to keep low frequency on. And I'm going to use my patch tool, but again, you could use your healing brush tool, spot healing brush tool. Any of those will typically work for this. And I'm going to press Command + to kind of zoom in on this. And I'm going to just kind of draw around the wrinkles that I need to fix. And what I'm doing is I'm just drawing around them, and I'm dragging over to a place that I want it to sample from. And again, really tedious work. I should have just ironed my shirt. You can see here's the before and here's the after. So big difference, a lot of time editing those. So next time I will make time to iron my shirt the old-fashioned way.